Hello, Olya. Hello, everyone. Olya, great to see you again and to have this conversation with you. Startup people strategy, making growth sustainable. We've been having conversations about this on social media, in person for some time, about how can companies, how can startups really create a culture that people enjoy being part of, that can help them ensure high performance and engagement for their people. Really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and insights on it today.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from, why this subject?
Yes, of course. So I work as a people manager at Switchee, where I'm the only people person in the company. So I can take care of basically everything from the moment somebody gets to read about us somewhere online to the moment that they, join and get recruited and feel some job satisfaction from being with us and then become like a champion of Switchee when they leave, hopefully. So it's very important to me that everybody gets looked after and that their experience at work with our company is the best experience at work they've ever had. So that's kind of a big goal that I'm working towards, and I'm just trying to organize some engagement things, organize our culture, organize the experience of being employed to be, to be as close to that goal as possible and to make people happy. So my background as well is I have a psychology background and I have a background in transformational coaching. So aside from just loving people so much, I also kind of learned of how to treat people better, I guess, and how to talk to people more productively. And this really helps me in my career.
Thank you, Olya. And as for me, uh, both of us share background in transformational coaching and in organizational psychology. And previously, I have worked for IBM as a talent management consultant. Right now, I'm a founder and director at a company called Business Purpose. And in my approach, I really focus on combining communication skills training with people analytics to make sure that companies are using data and gathering the feedback about their people. But with that feedback, they know how to use it to make sure everyone's having a better experience and that companies are basically treating their people best way possible to ensure productive, high performing and healthy working environment. And, uh, Olya, so one of the conversations we've been having for some time now is around the importance of people strategy, especially for um, successful quite startups at quite an early stage, for scale ups. They've been growing like crazy. In some instances, they really building the team. And there's a time when they realize they need a people person, they need someone to look after culture, and they need to have those strong cultural foundations to continue growing sustainably. And that's where they really understand the importance of people strategy. Based on your experience with startups, what are your thoughts about people strategy and when is the right time to start thinking about it?
Mm-hmm. I think there are a couple of things that you might want to think about when you come to people strategy. You can have a short-term strategy, which is for like your next 12 months, or you could think of a long-term strategy, which is for more than 12 months. And I think what's important here is that your CEO and your C-level, your board, they also have a strategy set up in similar ways. They also have that short-term 1 year and they have a long-term kind of 5-year strategy. And the people function is really sort of, in my opinion, quite sitting quite comfortably there because you have that larger strategy that's coming to you and you see what the business wants to achieve. What is the business mission? What is their objective in terms of product, in terms of where they want to be? And then from the people side, you're almost like helping them um, helping them mold that strategy more and helping them to fit all of your employee experience and your culture and your people progression into that strategy in order to accommodate these goals being reached by the people. So you can have, this is what our product goal is, this is what we want to do, but then because people do the work, so what do these people have to be, what state of mind they have to be in, what, how much mission driven they have to be in, how trained they have to be, how many people we need, so how we're going to scale the function in order to achieve those objectives. All of that is really important for the people strategy, and the best way or the best time to do it is basically whenever you see for the first time that larger strategy that the board and your CEO and your kind of C-level are discussing and bringing it to you. That's usually when I start clinging onto it and finding ways of achieving it. And I include culture, progression, performance, engagement, sort of these things in there, and try and build projects around those.
Yeah. Um, yes, absolutely. And I think what's really important here is understanding that thinking about people, thinking about culture early on is like having strong foundations for the business. It's like there's this structure, this building, and having strong foundations based on people, because if you grow, it can almost like go out of hand when you have some of the processes that were designed to be a bit more ad hoc, but that don't meet the sort of scale and the pace of growth that the business is experiencing. So making sure that there are processes in place early on to meet that can save a lot of trouble in the future when growth really picks up. And something about people strategy that's really important is making sure that there is this clarity about the full process of like the journey in the company for every employee, from the time that they first see an opportunity to work for the business or get recruited, to the time of their first engagement with the company, the interviews, how do they feel about it, what sort of things they're going to say, like in their reviews on Glassdoor about that process, to all the way to hiring, onboarding, working, engagement, and then leaving the company on good terms. All of those things are incredibly important and need to be part of company strategy, because those are the sort of things that affect not just the mood of the person who's going through those stages, but of everyone, because everyone feels like, oh, this person was let go and that didn't look very nice, and that's affecting the morale of everyone. That's affecting the headspace of everyone, because they'll be thinking about the sort of things that don't quite feel right in the culture, instead of feeling that sense of safety and that sense of being able to trust their managers, their leaders, and making sure that there are systems, that there are structures in place, and that there is this openness for understanding how this works is really one of the priorities for creating people strategy.
Yeah, totally. I think with as you mentioned before, with creating that I guess the sense of togetherness, the sense of safety, that you're going to go through that, you're going to get there. I think sometimes the people strategy might also involve those communication strategies that would help you carry through whatever planning you have put together. And I think sometimes it gets a bit overlooked. Like the communication strategy should go side by side with your people strategy, because at every point you have to communicate to the team what you're doing, be transparent, get them excited, but most importantly, get everyone on the same page and explain what all of you are working towards. Those could be your all hands meetings that are regular. Those could be your quarterly 𝗭ощi reviews with the entire team, and kind of making them fun and making them visible for everyone, whatever departments are working on, how that all is uh, contributing to your overall strategy as the company. It just helps people constantly have that beacon of what we're working towards together and how we're getting there, and makes them feel a part of getting there together.
Yes, and Olya, you're mentioning a very important point of that sense of togetherness, that sense of everyone's joint ownership in the company's future, that the culture, strategy, the direction for the business isn't just something that's coming from the top, from the founders team, from the senior leadership, but that's something that everyone's evolved in. And of course, as the business is growing, there may be less opportunities for making sure everyone's opinion and everyone's decision is taken in, is given similar weight, but still that importance of openness, of knowing that's where we're headed, and that's like what's my role in it, whichever my role, whichever my position is in the company, that's my role in the overall company strategy. That's incredibly important, and that's how all of us are contributing to the engagement of all of our colleagues. That's how all of us are contributing through the little gestures, through our communication patterns, through the way we interact with others. That's how we all taking part in creating this better culture. And something that's incredibly important here is making sure that everyone's aware that like, just because it's a working place doesn't mean that they can sort of automatically expect everyone to act like less human, like as those like super professional robots who aren't like humans. It just doesn't work in any working environment. We need to understand that some people will express emotions at different times. Some people will, sometimes there will be miscommunication, sometimes all sorts of challenges in communication and performance will occur. And that is fine, and that's part of it. But the big question is whether the culture has not just the systems, but the overall sort of sense of safety weaved into it, so that people can have conversations about it, so that they have a shared language to talk about it, to understand what to do about it in the work context, to make sure that those professional relationships keep on going and things keep happening and high performance can be enabled in despite any miscommunications that will inevitably happen. And that's a really important point of then growing that to scale as the business is growing.
Totally. But one thing is that achieving this safety and also talking about it, like these concepts can sound very vague, but there are ways of making people safe, and there are ways of making them talk about it. And I want to just give you some actionable tips of how to basically enable those two things, which might be like really nice to have, and every business wants it, but then how do we actually enable that? So for them to feel safe, you want them to know what's happening. Nobody can feel safe if they're not in control. Nobody can be in control if they do not know the situation or the context. So how do we put people in control? We give them information, we give them knowledge, we give them something that they can hold on to, some facts. And this is something that can inspire that safety for growth and that confidence for growth. When you sit down with your senior leaders, you sit down with your SLT, and you are very transparent about what potential growth or progression or training or L&D opportunities are available for you. And this is where you use your people strategy, right? So you're like, you've sat together, you saw what strategy the business has, you worked out your own people strategy for this, you allocate your budgets, and then you talk to your SLT and you say, this is the strategy we have, these are the budgets that we have allocated for learning and development this year, and this is the budgets that we have allocated for progression this year and for raising people's salaries and for giving them them bonuses, so that your senior leadership team can always be, in the know of what is happening and what resources are available. That safety comes from knowing that you're not going to be let down. It's like you're safe to say what you want and you know what you're going to get back. It's sort of perceived sense of control here. And when you have your senior leaders in the business all aligned on what is possible, there could never be a chance of them over-promising and under-delivering in the end. So these leaders do not have to go there and imagine some ways of rewarding their team and then only be told that we don't actually have the resource to do that right now. So I wish you didn't tell them that. So kind of reining it all back in, start from the very beginning, have this whole transparent conversation with people, tell them what their resources are, what they can inspire their employees with, what they can reward this year with, and then reduce that chance that you're gonna make people feel insecure about the promises that their company is giving them. And another part of it was that was that confidence to actually go and do something and talk about it. So give them the language that they can use to talk about it. If you have a system in place that enables progression, then it has some language in that system. It may be called, career development framework or internal progression framework or succession planning, whatever words you use in your business, as long as they're there, the policy about it is there, the process is there, people know that it exists and they can go back to you and ask you questions about it, and that enables them to talk about it. So have that all out there, have that very accessible, and empower your senior leaders to be able to manage questions that come from there as well. So that is a whole other conversation, but about how to get your senior leaders on board with your progression planning and stuff like this. But then just some actionable tips that go into allowing employees to have that safe space, but also a space where they can talk about their own progression, because it actually exists.
And Olya, those are truly valuable recommendations. You mentioned the importance of having that clarity, that openness to ensure the sense of safety, to ensure the sense of we don't have to worry about things suddenly happening that are outside of our control so much, and we can focus on our work, on actually doing our jobs and enjoying working and interacting with our colleagues, as opposed to worrying about all of those different processes. And the importance of clarity here is immense. Also, on that note, it's really important for leadership to continuously seek employee feedback to make sure that they know what's going on in the business. Just because they've implemented some framework, built in a system, doesn't mean that that's it. Or just because they've run like an engagement survey once a year, doesn't mean that they can say that now we have a great culture and we're really committed to our employees' well-being and performance. It needs to be a continuous process of seeking feedback, of understanding what's going on in the business, and of finding new, better ways of serving one's employees so that they can be better at serving your customers and can be better at the job. And here it's incredibly important to not just have all of those opportunities for learning and for growth and having frameworks for conversations and performance, but also continuously adapting them based on the needs and based on what may be going on around in the environment. Like, for example, right now, for many companies, it would, I just had a conversation with it, about it with someone who is also an expert in employee engagement survey space. And something that's really important right now for the companies is not to keep using the same sort of listening techniques and the same sort of survey questionnaire, but actually adapting them to talk a little bit more about employee experience during lockdown, or how do they feel, how Do they feel that the company enables their well-being as they're working from home? Do they have confidence in their leadership's ability to deal with the prolonged uncertainty that's coming from lockdowns and all the restrictions that we're currently facing? And having that mindset of continuous learning and adapting to changes through feedback really is an important tool for leadership and managerial teams.
I agree. I think in anything that involves you building your strategy and planning on new projects, it can't just come out of your own mind. It has to focus on the reality of things. And asking people what that reality is for them is the most powerful thing you can use for your planning. So I totally agree. It's great to be, but also to give people an opportunity to speak up and say what they want. Um, it's very meaningful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've already shared so many great recommendations based on your experience as a people operations manager. But could you share with us perhaps what sort of things have you used recently to adapt how you're listening to your people, how you're gathering feedback? I think that could be really interesting for others to hear, because I know you're very good as a people operations professional at coming up with those feedback initiatives.
Thank you, thank you. So there are a couple of things that I'm doing, and they are mostly focused on understanding what people's experience at work is and how to make that experience better. And that's divided into two for me: their experience at work in terms of their mental well-being and work-life balance, and their experience at work in terms of the job that they do, the support they receive from the manager, the belief that they have in the mission, and their ability to work in the current circumstances. So I have, for example, a quarterly survey, which I call an engagement survey, which asks them about the latter. So how they're finding actual work, actual ways of working of the business, the support they get, things they don't get. And it allows them to answer some questions, which I can then get scores for. But it also allows them to write like a small paragraphs of feedback under each section to say something that they wish I've asked them about, or put something inside there that they really wanted to report to me over the last quarter. And that's awesome. After that, we sit down with every senior leader responsible for each individual department. I share with them the scores, and we come up with an action plan to tackle those scores, and to tackle the feedback that people give. Those action plans can involve some really quick wins, but they can also involve some new processes being implemented. So one example that we had was we worked on kind of a better way to make our people feel safe when they are going on field trips and when they're going for and kind of work alone on those field trips. And somebody reported that as feedback, and we mobilized together, and we got the whole senior leadership team really thinking about how to make this better. We came up with a new policy and a new procedure and some branded equipment, whatever it is, to really tackle that feedback. This is just like one example. That is like a longer thing that happens, a bigger thing. But there are also some smaller wins. Maybe people are asking to just be more in the loop about how the work that we do impacts the overall strategy, long-term strategy of the business, and where we're heading, and how far along the line are we there to get it. So we started including in our quarterly OKR reviews, we started including that aspect of our long-term vision and how far along the line are we to get there. And it's just one slide, and it takes like less than a minute to walk people through it, but it makes a big difference to them. And that's all I care about. I want them to see that we really actioned their feedback and we gave them something that they were looking for. And about the mental well-being, so we have a weekly poll, and it's like one question, and every week it's a different question, but it is about work-life balance, mental well-being, and whether there is enough support for it. And I share the results of that with the team as well. So whenever they filled everything in, I publicly share all of those results on Slack, and I say, this is what you told me, so this is what I'm going to do about it, and then I do it. And then kind of that's just my way of asking what they want and trying to give it back.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this, Olya. And as I was just listening, in my experience as a consultant in the employee engagement service space, I was thinking you're sort of ticking all the boxes like a textbook.
That's
Sort
it. That's a good one. Yeah.
of, some of the things that you said that are really great. You collect both survey feedback, like quantitative data, to understand how you're doing, but you're also collecting comments to understand what's really happening and to sort of get the individual stories and understand what else can be done. And you mentioned asking question of what else could we be doing? That's a great question to ask. It's like when you're designing the survey, you may not think of some of the questions that your people wish you thought of and asked them,
Yeah.
and that's great. Another thing that I thought is really great when you are meeting and discussing it with the senior leadership team, you are coming up with both some of the quick wins and some of the longer term commitments. And it's incredibly important to have a clear action plan based on the survey to ensure survey credibility and leadership credibility further down the line. But also having quick wins so that you can say, look, you said we did, but also a few things that will take the longer term action. And to add to that, it's really important to continuously communicate that this initiative, this particular change is happening because you gave us feedback as to what doesn't or doesn't work. I've worked with some companies that like are really committed to following up on their employee engagement survey, but then year after year in their survey, they see that people say they don't feel enough is being done based on the survey. And they're like, oh, we're spending so much money, like bringing in all those trainers, doing all of this work. Why they don't notice it? And then I ask them, well, have you actually told them that those initiatives are being taken because of the feedback you received? And like, no, we thought that's like obvious. Like, well, how about you start telling that and making sure that you sort of gain extra points, like you as an HR team, as a people, as a head of people, a senior leadership, you can get extra points by saying, look, we're doing this because we listen to your feedback. And this will eventually create this culture of a stronger culture of trust and feedback, because people will know that their feedback is really being taken on board. And I guess we're coming the full circle here to the beginning of our conversation, but those sort of steps can really help you to create stronger people culture and strategy to ensure continuous growth and scaling for your business.
I agree. I love to tell people that it was their idea, because I also don't want to pretend that those were all my ideas. I just want them to know that I really appreciate what they're saying. And I've noticed that when you actually tell people that was your idea and this is the outcome, the next survey they write more, because they are like, oh, like I can get a mention or, oh, like this is really happening. So actually people are writing more feedback on the next survey because they know you are going to give it back, and you're going to explain that, you know, this is really going to happen. Another thing I recommend is just have a question in there that asks, I ask, uh, sort of, do you believe that action will be taken as a result of this
Mhm.
survey? And I really like to track this because I know action is being taken as a result of the survey, but do they know that the action I'm taking was based on the result of the survey? So that's just another way to check that box for yourself and see whether they know you're doing it as a result of that survey or not. And then you know how much more you have to communicate about it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really to sum up everything we've discussed today, Olya, to create that strong people strategy and culture for continuous growth, it's important to provide opportunities for learning, for personal and professional growth for people, having that environment of trust and collaboration, knowing how to speak about challenges, how to address any sort of conflict and misunderstanding, and having the common language and tools for giving each other feedback around that, and then for leadership and managerial teams to continuously listen to their people's feedback so that they can continue improving those systems, and the overall sense of high performing culture that's really also taking into account people's well-being and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with especially with what's happening these days, you can really use that personal development as a way to achieve better retention and better employee engagement, because you are many companies are maybe in this scenario where they simply do not have the resources to scale, but this is where you can go back and oh sorry, my dog just sneezed like so loud. But this is where you can go back and offer your people something different that that they can still get out of their employment, that they can still put on their CV. Perhaps you can offer them courses, perhaps you can offer them further progression in their role and learning new skills in their role and enhancing their seniority in their role, enhancing their responsibilities. There is a potential that people would not be able to uh, be as interested because you have this period over Christmas where people rethink how attached they are to this job. They were away for a while and they might be coming back and thinking, actually, I don't really enjoy this. I actually want to move. But the market is so volatile that they are choosing to delay it and they're not going to move right now, so they're choosing to delay. This gives you an opportunity to take these few months and turn their experience upside down, make it, listen to them, hear them out, give them what they want, and try and use those tools to engage them back with your business, because nobody wants a surprise later in the autumn when everything stabilizes to have dropouts.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. All the wonderful suggestions. It's like, even if right now maybe there's a bit of time of sort of slower growth for some companies, there are so many opportunities for making sure that the existing employees are having the best experience possible, and that you are and that they'll be more likely to stay in the business further down the line, because for those challenging times, you as a head of people, you as a business leader have really supported them.
Absolutely. People, I keep saying that, but later down the line, people are, when they want to know what culture they are going to be working with, they're going to ask you their interview question, what did you do? What did you do 2020, 2021? How did you deal with that crisis? And I know it's maybe a little bit cheesy and maybe people say it too much, but I know I will ask this uh, in my future employment sometime. I know I will, because it matters what you did and your thinking process. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
build some memories.
Olya, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights today. Always a pleasure to speak with you and to hear about your experience and perspective in the people operations space. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
So listeners, you can find me on LinkedIn. There's my name, so you can kind of just put it in the search, but also you can listen more about the different suggestions, actionable tips and advice I'm giving out to people in the HR, to the people through our podcast, which is called the Modern Employer #Wildcards, where we talk about progressive ways of fulfilling people operations. So I can't wait to see you there.
And I can just say I can really recommend listening to Olya's podcast. It's fun, but it's also full of great wisdom and advice from professionals from the HR people on operations field, tackling some of the really important challenges. And it's really a great use of your time if you're looking for more actionable tips and advice. So listen to that. And as for me, I can be contacted over email. It's here on the screen, pavel@businesspurposecoaching.com. And through LinkedIn, feel free to connect. Let me know why you're connecting, or just send me a little hi message. And always happy to have a chat about people analytics, about how you can better measure your feedback and how to make sure that your management and leadership teams have the communication skills to enable growth and better company culture for the benefit of everyone. Thank you, Olya, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you. Bye.